Okay, everybody, we're going to dive into our next session, which is transforming procrastination into power and purpose. But again, I just want to congratulate you guys for showing up and really doing this, because that's really the heart of what we're doing today is getting back into action. So great job for showing up and staying in this. And so let's all just take a couple deep breaths. We're going to switch gears a little bit. I actually love how the flow of this has happened today. It's turned out perfectly. We did some inner work with Herman, and then Casey took us through some really practical steps. And now we're actually going to go back and do a little bit more internal work. And then later on, I think Phoebe's going to be back on with some more practical stuff. So it's a great mix. So take a deep breath, and you know what I want to invite you to do? Awesome, Zamara says stretching done. I want to invite you to just take a deep breath, because again, we're switching gears a little bit, and maybe just set an intention, whatever that is for you, but I always like to have some kind of intention. Maybe it's just to listen wholeheartedly, maybe to show up in a new way, to learn something new that you can actually take away. Whatever that is. And, you know, the reason I just keep suggesting to people to chat is because that's just a way that we do take in the information more, we integrate it. But set an intention for what you'd like to get out of this next hour, or even the whole day, this whole session for that matter. Okay, so here's what I'm going to be talking about. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the nature. We're going to do this really deep dive on procrastination. We're going to talk about the nature of procrastination and how it affects us. And I'm just going to share how it's affected me in some real ways, but also that led me to solve it in a way that I felt was transformative and sustainable. So I'm going to be talking about how it affected me, this process that I came up with. And then we're going to do a fairly deep dive into this 5-step process. And what I love to do in my sessions is actually do some guided work. So I'm pretty sure we're going to have time to do that, a little bit of guided work with whatever's underneath the procrastination that's coming up for you guys. And then we'll talk at the end about if there's a way you want to learn even more, because it's kind of an endless topic. We'll talk about how to actually just learn even more about it. So first of all, I think, let's just name when we talk about procrastination is it happens at different levels, right? Sometimes we just procrastinate occasionally and it's kind of annoying. And sometimes let's just name it, it can be chronic. It's happening a lot. And it's actually just starting to affect our ability to get things done. And it might also just be feeling really uncomfortable, right? So if that's you, and I'm guessing if you're here, you probably relate to some of that, but just, type yes in the chat box if it's chronic and if it's affecting, how you show up and it's affecting your life. So that's, chronic versus just kind of normal levels of procrastination. And by the way, the process we'll be talking about will be just as helpful wherever you are on that spectrum. But then, with procrastinating, there's also different levels of it, right? So, some days I just don't want to do my laundry and I'm procrastinating on doing my laundry. Not that big of a deal. Well, maybe actually, I suppose, depending on the circumstances, but generally not that big of a deal. But, are you like me potentially procrastinating on stuff that's important? Maybe it's related to your business, like preparing for meetups. I do a lot of meetups and I frequently procrastinate doing it. Maybe it's making an important phone call, doing something for your business, some of the stuff that Casey was talking about around systems. So, there's procrastinating on small things, and then there's procrastinating on things that actually have a larger ripple effect on our life. So yeah, Zamara said thanks, and Kathy says you think non-stoppers wouldn't have this problem. Yeah, and it affects it affects what I choose to get done. That's exactly it. That too. So, and that has a ripple effect also. And we're going to talk more about that. But yeah, so I'm guessing most of us here are somewhere on that spectrum of chronic, and it's affecting us. And especially if you are an entrepreneur, then it's a particularly big deal. So again, what we're going to do today is we're really going to get into 5 steps to transform this in a sustainable way that gets you back into action and what I like to think of as power and purpose. Um, so I didn't have anybody introduce me, but I'm Diane, and I'm an intuitive transformational coach. And you know, more than that, I have been a self-help junkie my entire life. I'm endlessly fascinated with self-help, but I think, the cosmic joke, sometimes I like to think of it as these days, is I've just experienced all these different challenges that made me go pursue self-growth, self-help, I should say. But it's been a fascinating journey, and I like to think that what I'm doing now is actually putting it to really good use, and by coaching and sharing this information with others. That's at least my intent, is to put this to really to sort of double the impact of all of that I've learned about these challenges. So what I do mostly these days, what I'm most passionate about, and in particular, I love working with emerging entrepreneurs because there's this level of enthusiasm and a message and something to give that feels really important to support. So I love helping anyone, but especially emerging entrepreneurs, to transform fear, self-doubt, anxiety, indecisiveness, and absolutely procrastination into clarity, into confidence, decisive action. And like we're talking about today, we're going to talk about power and purpose. So that's my focus in my coaching and in my own life at this point. And you know what? That's what I do with procrastination too. We transform it into decisive action, clarity, and purpose. So have I dealt with procrastination? Have I dealt with it on the important things on a chronic level? Yes. Yes, I have. You know, I been at this a moment ago, but actually the worst thing for me is when I do it right before a meetup. Um, and it's just interesting how those old impulses will come up that starts, I start wanting to put it off and put it off and put it off. And I don't know about you guys, but it starts to feel messy. And I actually even start to get foggy. And then what usually follows the fogginess is a little bit of paralysis. I don't know, can you guys relate? Paralysis, fogginess. And then at some point, the clock's ticking. I've got something I've got to do. And it actually just starts to spiral into a little bit of panic. And that's really unpleasant. And yeah, it's something that I've done to myself, because I do see it as something I do to myself. I've done, albeit innocently, for a long time. And I was really determined to learn how to transform that. So into this confidence and decisive action. And so that's what I've done. And again, that's what we're going to talk about. But, for those of you guys who got to hear Herman's talk earlier, I resonated and agree with a lot of what he said. I mean, the thing about these patterns, like procrastination, is that they generally start earlier in life, right? That's the origin. And so for me, it's no different. I look back and I had a really chaotic, unstable, and messy childhood. There was a lot of, just issues around finances and moving a lot, and a lot of stress. And, my parents weren't happily married, and how it's difficult to be in those kinds of situations. So it was chaotic, and, there was not a lot of safety. And I think my mother actually sort of realized this. I think she probably thought a lot, spent a lot of time worrying that we were going to be homeless, actually. I think that affected me a lot. But the other thing that I've really gotten to see is, she was really overwhelmed. She was really stressed. She was in a lot of fear. My dad was gone a lot. So as kids, what we did not get was a lot of reflection and a lot of mirroring. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but when parents do that for children, it's a really important step, right? So that this is what helps kids get to know themselves, build a sense of confidence, and be able to trust ourselves. We need our parents to be able to have the capacity to mirror us so that we build up those capacities. So, when we don't get that as children, unfortunately, it kind of sets us up for a lot of self-doubt, for a lot of anxiety. And that, translates to indecisiveness, inability to trust myself. And then it can take time to figure out how to do things differently. I think I did for a lot of years what everybody else does is I just sort of push the feelings away. I learned how to do that. Like, this is just inconvenient. I just don't want to feel it. I'm just going to squash it. I got pretty good at that. And then, you know what I did? I did chronically was asking other people for advice. And it takes time to see, but you know what? That is a formula for more self-doubt, right? When we're always asking other people what we should do, it never actually lands because it's somebody else's idea of what's right. So it just perpetuates the inability to trust ourselves. So that's what was happening for me painfully for a lot of years. The turning point, which was painful too, like Casey, I was in the Army for a while, and then I got into corporate America. And you know what? I wasn't happy with either. That I've been someone who's purpose oriented my whole life, and it just really had nothing to do with my purpose that I could feel or relate to. So, um, but being someone who didn't have a lot of confidence and who didn't trust myself, guess what? I couldn't take any action. I mean, in a way, you could call it like this giant procrastination. There just seemed to be nothing I could do about it, even though I fantasized about doing something. But ultimately, what happened was I developed a really severe repetitive stress injury. So I hadn't had the courage to take any action, but my body, my higher self, however you like to hold that, life said, nope, now, you're not doing this anymore. So this repetitive stress injury was so bad, I actually had to quit my job, my corporate job, and I had to take 6 months off work. It was pretty shocking. Um, and you know what? I had all this time. Now I was in a lot of pain, but I had all this time to figure out what in the world am I going to do. And there was a lot of, as you can imagine, a lot of anxiety got triggered around this. What in the world am I going to do? And it got so intense that finally there was just sort of nothing to do but listen. And so for me, this has been the turning point in a couple different points in my life. Is I have got to go inside, got to stop asking other people. I have to go inside and I have to listen and find out from what I call my intuition, my own inner guide, my own inner wisdom, what's actually happening for me, what's needed, and what's next. Because there was no going back to corporate America, I can assure you. So this was the only thing I could do at this point was start listening. And so I did. And I just sort of listened step by step and allowed my journey to just unfold from there. And so, there were a series, of course, of external events of coming back into the workforce, into a way, well, to healing my repetitive stress injury, coming back into working. But really the transformation was internal. It was just so clear to me that I have got to start putting my priority on listening here all the time. I mean, it's fine to gather information, and that's what we're all doing here. We share experiences and we learn from each other, but then we've always got to come back here, integrate it, and turn it around, and then land on what's actually being asked of us, for us, by us. So again, this whole process was happening, sinking in. I've got to start listening. And, it's become so clear to me over the course of my life, and since then in particular, is that every feeling, emotional or physical, or it might feel like an intuitive nudge, that's a little more obvious, but every feeling or sensation is asking to be listened to. It's actually got something in it for us. And when I realized, it took me time, but that my repetitive stress was, of course, my body saying, listen up, we can't keep doing things this way. This is not kind of what I had in mind for my life. So all of our feelings are actually asking to be heard, as uncomfortable and inconvenient as they are. And frankly, you know what? They get more uncomfortable and more inconvenient if we don't listen, which is basically what happened with my repetitive stress injury, right? It's just, I wasn't listening. So it just continued to get more intense. So these feelings, we are all wanting to be heard. So this is true of self-doubt, of fear, anxiety, and, guess what? It's true of procrastination also. So this has really been the major transformation in my life is learning to listen, and then to transform through listening. And then I can transform whatever feeling is coming up into clarity and action. What I like to think of as just decisive action, because now I'm clear what's actually being asked for. Um, so yes, I do this when fear comes up. I do this when anxiety comes up. And I absolutely do this when I feel that urge to procrastinate come up. And so that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. But yeah, actually, so just naming, I don't know if this is true for you guys, but when that urge to procrastinate comes up, I know what my choices are. I can just kind of hang out in that I want to procrastinate energy, and I'm just in it, right? The clock's counting down and I'm just waiting to go into panic mode, which is horrible. So I know that that's one choice, and I can make that choice if I want to. Yeah, Kathy, sometimes the panic pushes you. Yes, Kathy, that's what I was about to say. So the next step is that I can either wait until it becomes panic, which pushes me, or just using all out willpower, right? And that's kind of what I think you're saying, is that procrastination can push us into willpower, or I can choose to go into willpower sooner. I'm just going to force myself to do this. But you know what? That doesn't feel good either, right? Because just that willpower, that forcing ourselves to do something, can feel like it's just not authentic. It's not really what's being asked for. So I don't like to do that either. But you do what you have to do, right? So, and truthfully, sometimes I do procrastinate and go into panic. Sometimes I use willpower. Sometimes it's a mix, but I know now that I have a choice and I have a process that can transform procrastination into clarity and into some action, decisive forward action. And what I want to say too is, every time we actually take that step, we make that choice to listen to ourselves and listen to the procrastination, it has a cumulative effect. That's the beauty, because it just increases our self-awareness and it increases our capacity. So it gets a little bit easier. And this is true with fear and anxiety and self-doubt too, is every time we choose to listen to it, it's cumulative. We expand. It becomes way easier next time. So yeah, so that's a little bit of how I got here today, and you can probably hear the passion in me about showing up for this stuff in new ways. So what we're going to do now is we're going to dive right into content, and we're going to break down the energy of procrastination, which is sort of the fun part. And then I'm going to walk you guys through my 5-step process. And then I'm pretty sure that was the plan, was to have plenty of time to actually do a little guided practice. So I hope everybody has a pen and paper, because you might find you want to actually hopefully you're taking notes on this whole summit, but you might want to take some notes in terms of what surfaces during the exercise that we do. So let's just start by breaking down procrastination. And this is really ultimately step one in listening. Like, what is it when this energy of procrastination comes up in you guys? And if you have ideas, type them in the chat box. But what because we're so trained, it's so automatic to just say, oh, this doesn't feel good, and we don't want to feel it. But the beauty and the wisdom is in actually feeling it. So when we actually feel it, I notice it's usually one of two things, right? It's usually there's something that I want, like maybe to prepare for my meetup, but it feels a little bit distant. And then what's in the foreground is, oh, but I really just want to watch my favorite show on TV, and I recorded 2 episodes, right? Like this might sound funny, and I am making fun of it a little bit, but I feel like this is a very real life example. There's something I need to do, prepare this talk for a meetup, but I really just want to watch these 2 shows on TV. Or maybe it's I want to hang out with somebody. Notice there's 2 things, at least 2 things that I want to do. Another example, it's usually one of these 2, so it's either that, or it's, I just know I need to do this, but I just can't. I just can't. There's just something that's saying, nope, just don't do it. I need to do it, but don't do it. Does that sound familiar to you guys? Kathy says, it feels like a devil on my shoulder is telling me, don't worry, you can do that later. Let's do X, Y, Z right now. Yes, let's just watch those 2 episodes. We've got all night to prepare this talk. But the key here, so this is just kind of an example, and like the beauty and the power in listening is notice that the nature of what's underneath procrastination is that there's more than one desire and they are in conflict, right? It's 2 conflicting or more desires. When we break it down, you're going to see that it might even be more than 2. So mixed feelings, conflicting feelings. So, I was thinking of this analogy when I was preparing this. It's kind of like, have you guys ever done this? I mean, I actually did do this once, strangely, when I was transitioning from driving a stick shift to an automatic. I had my foot on the accelerator and the brake at the same time. But that's, I think, what procrastination can feel like. And, when you put your foot on the accelerator and the brake, you might not know this, but I learned what wins is the brakes. So we inevitably, if we can't resolve this conflict, we're most likely going to go into inaction until, as we said, until panic sets in or we choose willpower. And Natalie says, yeah, feeling overwhelmed can be paralyzing. Where do I start? Yes. Yeah. So and if you hadn't noticed that before, that it's actually these sort of conflicting desires, just notice that and maybe just type that in the chat box. I'm just curious to know if that was kind of already obvious or if that's a new insight for anybody. There's actually sort of multiple things happening underneath the surface. And Kathy says, actually, Kathy, I can relate to what you're saying. She's saying that voice is saying, don't worry, you can do it later. So it doesn't really feel like a conflict. Okay, we're going to talk about that because sometimes one voice is louder than another. We're going to dive into that next. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the 5 steps for transforming procrastination. And I know I asked the other 2 speakers, so I do have a PDF for this if you guys find that this is helpful. So I would encourage you to take notes because I do find for many of us that helps us integrate the information, but I'm happy to send anybody a PDF after this. So there are 5 steps, and there are 5 steps to transform, to actually not just get out of procrastination and get the damn thing done. I mean, I want to transform it into purpose and clarity and power. And, just what I think of as decisive action that feels in alignment. And I'd also love to transform this pattern so that it doesn't come back again or not to the same degree. So this is what my 5-step process will do for you. Now, it's important to do these steps in order because they build on each other. If you skip a step, it can get a little bit muddy. Yes, Kathy says, I want to have power and control over procrastination. Yes, awesome. And then Phoebe says, I tend to do something else that's important, so it makes it okay. I got it. Yeah, yes. So we're going to just talk through this process, and what I think is that when we get through all the 5 steps, you're going to have a little bit of a sense of it's going to make more sense to you what's actually happening under the surface, and of course, how do we work with it? And then we're going to dive right into you guys practicing. So step number 1, as I was saying earlier, all of life is asking us to listen. So this is the first commitment we need to make to ourselves is, can I stop and listen? And, it sort of depends where you are in that procrastination cycle. If your talk is happening in 10 minutes, you probably just got to write the talk. But the idea is to start building this into your life, is that when these feelings come up, I'm willing to stop and listen. So to stop and again, if this is obvious, some of it might sound obvious, but sort of putting the whole thing together, I think, is not obvious. So when we stop and listen, it's important to literally stop moving, get quiet. And the other thing that it's really super helpful to cultivate the ability to get into our body. And, that can be difficult for some of us. It's also not that complicated. And, how I do that, um, yes, Natalie, I'm happy to send that to you if you can let me know your email. If you send it to me privately, I'm happy to send that to you. So, getting into our body is not that mysterious or complicated. And the way that we do that is just by locate whatever we're feeling. We need to just stop and locate that in the body. That's all we do. It's really quite that simple, but it can take a little bit of practice. Is whatever emotion we're feeling, stress, fear, self-doubt, anxiety, we can find this. We can find it in the body. And, and what you might discover is after you do this practice for a while, where it is in your body for you is sort of predictable, although it's different for different people. But this is how we drop out of the thinking about the problem and into our body so that we can listen. Because when we stay in the mind's just going to continue to circulate through the different desires that are coming up that I was talking about earlier, right? So learning to get into the body and finding that energy of whatever it is that's underneath the procrastination, finding it in the body and listen. Really, we listen to what it feels like, and then we listen to what it's saying. And it can be can be uncomfortable if that's a new practice for you. But what can also happen, this is the upside, is if it's uncomfortable, it can actually feel like a total relief to the body to listen. It's something we haven't really learned how to do. Your body can just go, oh, thank you for listening. So it sounds, it can sound a little strange if it's not a practice you've had before, but just dropping in, finding the sensation and saying, what am I feeling? And listening to that. Okay, so stop and listen is step number one. Step number two is listen and unravel the different desires. So what I'm going to tell you is there's sort of two we can find fairly easily, but they're often more than two desires. And I thought I would just give you an example of kind of what happens for me. But so, we when we drop into the body and we start to get comfortable with this process of listening, you'll find one, you find the first one. Okay, what am I needing or wanting? And then you say, okay, what else am I needing or wanting? But what else? And so you'll find these different desires. So here's an example of kind of how this might play out for me. And I think this will speak to, I think it was Kathy, I think this might be to, sorry, I'm just reading the notes, Zamara's note. Okay, I'm going to come back to your comments. Sorry, because otherwise I'm definitely going to come back and read those. So I'll find that the first voice is generally the one that wants to avoid the whole thing. Okay, let's say it's Friday and I'm preparing for a meetup. There's a voice that just wants to avoid the whole thing, and she just wants to watch Netflix, right? So often, and this goes back to what Kathy was saying, is often that voice is the loudest, the one that just wants to watch Netflix. And you know what? She'll justify it. You got plenty of time. It's okay. I just really want to watch Netflix. So that's going to be the first one. And it's very predictable for me that I'm going to find that voice who wants to do something fun, easier, that has no charge, that has no challenge, right? And that's the key to notice too. She wants to do something that's fun and that has no challenge. Sometimes, actually, to Phoebe's point, she can say, but you know what, this other task is really important too. Sometimes she'll do that too, but generally, like, that task that she's proposing is one that's less charged. It's a little bit easier for me to dive into, right? You see you nodding. You see the pattern here, but she can be awfully convincing. You've got time. This other task is really important. So it's so important to get to know these voices. So, okay, so that's one desire, one voice I might hear. Another one I might hear is, depending on the timing, how many hours are left before my meetup. Another one will come in, and this is my, disaster caller. She starts going, "Oh my God, this is going to be horrible. It's going to be a complete disaster. You're not going to be ready. The worst possible outcome is going to happen." Now, the problem with this voice is she's in so much fear that she creates some fogginess and a lot of discomfort. And now I'm all foggy and I'm all focused on things going horribly, and I can't possibly sit down and prepare my talk. So I've got to find that voice too that's just so convinced it's going to be just the worst disaster on the planet. And then here's kind of really the key voice. So it's really important to get to this layer. So now we're talking about at least 3 voices or desires. If I've heard the one who wants to watch Netflix or do something more important, I've heard the one who's terrified. Underneath that is another one who's saying something like, "I can't do this. I don't know how to do this. I'm scared to do this." Right? So that's what's at the bottom. And it's really, I guess, this is what happens for me, and I hold all the space in the world for you and your process, but you're very likely to get to that same voice at the bottom that's, "I'm scared. I don't know how to do this. I can't do this. I'm going to fail." That's what's creating the charge around getting this done in the first place. So we really want to find all the voices, at least 2, maybe 3, maybe more. Now, now here's where I was saying it's important to listen to these follow these steps in order, because now that you've listened to all the voices and the conflicting desires, now you might notice that there's a voice that's missing. The aspect of ourselves who signed up in the first place that said, "Yeah, I want to give this talk. I have something I want to give that feels powerful, and I know I can do it." This is the visionary, the mature adult with a purpose. So you might notice when we're in procrastination mode, that version of us is missing. So that's why it's really important to listen to all the voices that are coming up first, and then we get to see, where's the visionary? Where's the leader? Where's the one that really wanted to do this in the first place for whatever reason? Okay, so that takes us to step number 3. So step number 3 is what I just call, and how I experience it is, now that I've listened to these voices, and now I'm remembering I'm not in my visionary leader, wise, mature self, is now I need to call that self back. And the language is weird. Maybe I call her back. Maybe I find her. Maybe I just step into that aspect of myself. Use whatever language resonates for you. But so now at this point in the process, I make a conscious, intentional, informed choice to come back to my vision, this important thing that I actually wanted to do and committed to doing. And what I would say, here's where it can get a little bit tricky. This is where our body is so useful, because we want to find and make sense of that in our body. And when we do, it will feel clear and purposeful. We'll just feel that. That's my vision. That's my purpose. That's what I chose to do. It's what I wanted. We'll feel that. If we stay in our thinking state, we're just going to keep hearing all the voices arguing about what they want to do. So yeah, this is just sort of my plug again for just learning to use your body as, I don't know, as a tool or an ally, however, whatever language resonates for you. To step back into your visionary, wise, mature adult self. Okay, step number 4. This is the magic. This is where we reclaim power and purpose. So once we've found this part in ourselves, we get centered, we get aligned with this adult self. So this is where, and this is really important. This is really important. If you want to reclaim your power and your purpose, and transform this, you got to go deeper. So what does that even mean? I'm going to tell you what it means. But so we find our vision, and then we've got to really go deeper. So where we can actually feel that vision in our bodies again, that thing that I committed to. So, for me, it's giving a meetup. Maybe for you, it's something personal you wanted to do for somebody. Whatever it is, but we've got to step back into what I called an embodied version of that vision in our bodies. And then what happens is we step into that becomes the foreground of our experience, right? And this takes practice. And we just want to be gentle and kind to ourselves as we're practicing it, but letting this now, our adult self with this vision, this thing we want to do, let this become the foreground by using the sensation in our body. And as we just keep going a little bit deeper into the sensation, as we name, right, my vision is, I want to do this thing because. So then we connect into our deeper purpose. And this is, for me, this is everything for getting out of procrastination, is connecting into the deeper purpose in my body and fully claiming that. And so then I step into my body and I feel that, and then I see myself living or doing this thing, taking action. And then as I'm watching myself, I just create a little scene. I see myself, and it's partly doing the thing, but having the impact that whatever it is, again, maybe it's related to your business, maybe it's a talk, but maybe it's something really personal that you wanted to do for somebody. So as you see yourself taking that action and you see that impact, notice how that feels of having that impact. This is where we reclaim our power. So this is the two parts. Reclaim your purpose by reconnecting to the vision, and reclaim our power by seeing the impact. And, this can sound all very esoteric, and how do I actually do that? But this is actually the only way to do it, is to really step out of all of those voices without invalidating them, but into our wise adult visionary self, into what we actually wanted. This is the only way actually through procrastination. Sorry, now I just wanted just taking a look at some of the notes. Okay, I'm definitely gonna come back and read your notes and questions, but I love that you guys are sharing comments with each other, and typing, taking action, expressing what you're experiencing, and sharing with each other. So I love that. But I'm going to come back and read them. Okay, step number 5. So step number 4 was the magic of power, reclaiming power and purpose, and step number 5 is the transformation. So as I said earlier, if we keep doing this, we keep building capacity and we keep building self-awareness. So that helps. Steps 1 through 4 are going to make an enormous difference. Step number 5 is the game changer. So, and this goes, if you guys were on earlier when Herman was talking, he talked a lot about this too. So 4 is the transformational, game-changing step, is when we actually come back at whatever point, now maybe I've connected back to what it is I need to do, and now I'm all motivated and I'm writing my talk, or I'm doing this thing I wanted to do. So maybe it's not in this moment. Maybe we come back later to those parts that said, I can't do it. I don't know how to do it. Or the one that was terrified of the world. The sky's going to come crashing down if I do this wrong. The part that wanted to go watch Netflix instead. So what we want to do is we want to come back to these young parts. And this is what we call inner child work. And you can do this at any level, and I want to tell you that at whatever level you choose to do it, it is cumulative. So if you just do a little bit of it, it's cumulative. The more you do it, the more of an impact it has. If you do a lot of it, you'll just transform it faster. But whatever you do is going to have an impact. And really, what we want to do is just soothe, reassure, and listen to those young parts. So you may remember, right in the beginning, I was talking about my own childhood and how there just wasn't ever any kind of reflection or validation. My mother was just too busy and too stressed and too freaked out all the time. And for me, it created these patterns, lifelong patterns of self-doubt. So what we need to do now to transform those parts, and we can, is we just do that validating and listening to those young parts for ourselves. And it's not, sometimes I think we think it's something I need help with. I can't do it for myself. Sometimes help is, excuse me, really supportive, can make the work a lot deeper, but we can do it for ourselves too, in a really impactful way, just by listening to those parts, listening to what they're actually scared of, and helping that young part. We'll go into the exercise and you'll see what I mean, but we can help those young parts kind of make new meaning of maybe an old experience. Make new meaning. We can help them feel more courage, feel more confidence that our adult self has got it. We'll do a practice with this, so hopefully you'll get to see a little bit. But so just listening, validating, reassuring those young parts, they're safe, they're okay, and we, the adult, we've got it, goes a long way to shifting this pattern. So who knew that there was so much underneath procrastination, right? But it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to really go deep with ourselves and to connect even more powerfully with our vision. And actually, this is what I want to say. This is how I hold all of these feelings like self-doubt, fear, anxiety, procrastination. Every one of them is an opportunity to actually go deeper with our power and our purpose, to understand it better, to experience it, and to step into it. Always, always, and only always. Okay. So now let's see. I'm checking the time. It's 2. Okay. So I've got another 15 minutes in my hour. So let's actually, and I guess because Phoebe, you're at 3, so we depending on how we need to go with the practice. So we might have a little more time if we need it for the practice, and then I want to come back and read the questions. So now, this is just what I find the most powerful is let's not talk about it. Let's give it a shot. So I'm going to guide you guys through just a little practice here, and just see what happens. So I just welcome you to invite you to just be open-minded, and relaxed, and we're just going to see what happens. Okay, so let's see. So First of all, I want to invite you, take some deep breaths. And for now, you might want to write notes, but maybe just for now, this first part, maybe put down your pencil, because we actually just want to shift into a different part of a different experience right now, kind of out of the thinking mind for a moment. And if it feels comfortable to close your eyes, I encourage that. But if it feels safer to keep your eyes open, whatever works for you. But the key is just taking some deep breaths. Take some deep breaths. And just, gosh, and you've been on this call, some of you, since 11:30 this morning. So just taking a moment to listen. What's happening? What's happening in my mind and my body? What's happening around me? Just listening for a moment. And if you notice that just this stopping and listening to yourself can create a little bit of ease and relaxation in your body. So if you're noticing that, that's huge and has a cumulative effect. So just breathing into this moment and just feeling what's happening in you right now. And whatever's happening, whatever it is supposed to be happening, and it's okay. Okay, so now what I'm going to invite you to do, I'm going to invite you to think of a time, hopefully recently, where there's something that you were procrastinating on, something that you wanted to do, needed to do, but you felt that familiar, probably urge to procrastinate. So just bringing up that situation, just remembering it, visualizing it, just kind of really letting it be here right now. We're just kind of inviting it and letting it fully be back here right now. And then this is maybe the new part is just see if that feeling of maybe it's I don't want to do it, or I want to do something else, or something else is more important, whatever that feeling is, see if you can find it in your body. And just scanning your body, look for, it can be some tightness, it can be some anxiety, it can be just sort of a energy moving, butterflies. Just see what, if there's one spot that seems to be the center of whatever's stopping you from doing what you want to do. Or maybe it's the fogginess. Sometimes it's, sometimes we get sleepy when we want to do something. So just finding that in your body. And Kathy says that you just feel the resistance to doing it. So got it. But you know what? I bet you can find that resistance in your body. Usually resistance is some kind of tightness. And for me, it's always in my belly or my solar plexus. So just check it out. And then what I invite you to do is, if you can find this in your body, and if you can't, that's okay too. Just keep going with us. But it's just something we want to just keep paying attention to because it's helpful. But wherever you are with this process, now what I want to invite you to do is ask yourself what you're wanting. And we're going to look for 1, 2, maybe 3 different desires. So just find the first one. What is it? What is it I want to do right now? And, it could be saying, or it might be saying, I don't want to do that. It could be either one. So what is it I want to do, or what is it I don't want? And it might be, that voice of I want to do something else, or it might be the voice of I just don't want to do that. And if it is saying I don't want to do that, if it is that resistance, then ask that part of you, well, what does he or she actually want to do? And maybe it's instead, or what are they actually wanting? And then what I invite you to do is just keep asking, well, and what else? What else am I feeling? What other voices or parts of me are here? What do I want to do? What do I not want to do? See if you find more than one voice or desire. And then here's the super important part. And just being really gentle with yourself and just relaxing. We just do this. You can actually just trust that our body is going to do this at exactly the right pace for us. So by the way, there's no way to do this wrong. Not possible to do it wrong. But I want you to ask next, what are you afraid of? What might happen that you actually don't want to experience? What are we actually afraid of? So we just, again, this just setting this intention or this willingness, actually I like the word willingness, to just stop and listen and hear all of the voices, all of them, knowing there's more than one. And what do they want? What don't they want? What are they scared of? Okay, and now here's the next thing. With each voice, with each one that you've uncovered so far, this might sound a little odd, But I want you to ask, or you can feel into how old that part is. For example, the part that says, I want to go do something else instead. How old is he or she? Often these parts are young. Or maybe there's the panicked part. How old is that one? And the part that's afraid, how old is that one? And so in the interest of time, we're going to move on. But, this can take a little bit of time, a little bit of practice to really hear each one of these parts and what they want, what they don't want, and what they're scared of. It can take a little time. So again, there's no wrong way to do this. It's just a new way to show up and listen and learn from these feelings and these voices. So if you haven't fully uncovered all of it yet, don't worry, you're going to have more opportunity. But just so in the interest of time, we're going to move on to the next step. So hopefully you got to notice that these parts are young. You can hear kind of in the quality, or I don't know, somehow the tone that they're speaking back to us, or you can, maybe it feels familiar from an earlier time in your life, so we can sort of feel that they're young. And so now what I want you to do is, we don't, we validate all of them. I hear you, I see you, I'm listening. We don't want to push any of them away, especially now that we've just invited them to share with us. We don't push any of it away. But what we do kind of in addition is say, okay, and I'll just model this for me. But I'm Diane, and I'm 52 years old, and I have this life experience, and I have this wisdom. That's who I actually am in this moment. I'm this woman with a life of experience and learning and wisdom. And I want to step back into that part of me. And this woman that has some sort of vision. So just stepping into that, the woman with the vision. And then as you step into that, see if you can find that part in your body. Where does that part of you, where do you feel that in your body? For me, I feel it in my chest and in my heart. But see where you feel that part of you. And then how we make this part, I was saying earlier, we make this part the foreground. It's just as you start tuning or connecting into that part of you, that version of you, just kind of encourage, invite, allow that sense of yourself to get bigger. Just allowing it to get bigger. And really let that sort of take up more space. And again, we're not invalidating any of the young parts. If anything, we're embracing them. They all get to be here. Nobody's wrong or right, or nobody's wrong. But we just want to reconnect to our wise adult self and let her take up more space. And then let her, and then in this moment, just, coming back to your vision. What is your vision? What did you actually want to accomplish with this thing that you're procrastinating on? What did you actually want? Maybe there was some new level of leadership or responsibility that you are stepping into. It's usually some way that we're kind of stretching ourselves a little bit. So just stepping back into, oh yeah, I wanted to stretch myself a little bit. And then see yourself stretching and growing and taking on some new role or whatever it is that you decided to do. Just see yourself doing that. And in this moment, just reconnecting to your own purpose. That purpose, what it is you wanted to do, and your power to do that. Just feeling that in your body, that you can do that. And I know we're moving very quickly, but this is just to give you an idea how this works. Is then what I like to do too, is now that I'm connected to my wise adult self, is I like to ask, through my intuition, okay, what is my actual next step? So now I just get really practical. I've connected back to my vision, my power. What are my next steps? What do I actually want to put my focus on, my energy on right now that's totally in alignment with this vision? And my intuition will tell me very clearly. And the more that I just get deeper into my body, the more clear it is. Okay, this is the next step in my vision. So just seeing if you can do that. And again, I'm sorry to rush you guys a little bit, but just to give you an overview. Then the other piece we want to do is if you discovered a young voice, and thank you, Kathy said she discovered it's a young voice that doesn't want to do it because she might be yelled at or made fun of if I do it wrong. Thank you, Barbara shared too. As a child, I wanted to do something enjoyable, but my mom would say, "Not now, do your chores." So yeah, so these are just these memories that are still in us, and what we can do now is just, especially as we're in our wise adult self, is just say to that young part, "Sweetheart, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that you thought you were going to get yelled at or made fun of. I'm so sorry. That was just so hard and scary as a child, and I'm sorry somebody wasn't there to help you feel safe, to help you feel okay, to help you feel confident. That's what should have happened. I'm sorry that didn't happen for you." Um, and and a mom who could help you sort out the different feelings that might have been coming up and how to sort through them and figure out what to actually do next. Um, Thanks, Carrie shared too. So it sounds like your intuition is saying that you want peace and quiet. And don't make it so confusing. Oh, I love it, Kathy. Kathy's saying her intuition is telling her, don't make it so confusing that I can't do it right. Exactly. Yes, that's exactly the value, the wisdom that comes from doing this. Zamara said, my mom used to tell me I couldn't do that because I didn't have the skills. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you heard that. And the hard thing is that maybe there was a little truth in that, but our moms did, all of them, no matter what, they did the absolute best they could. But imagine if our mom had said, "Hey, sweetheart, let's work together to learn some new skills and to build up your confidence." Just imagine if that could have happened. And then that's what we want to say to these young parts now, "Sweetheart," or whatever, in your language. That's just how I do it. But, yeah, we can build up these skills now. Or I've already built up these skills. I know how to do this. We got this. Don't worry about it. We got this now. Whatever it is that helps those parts feel heard and seen and reassured. Reassured is a big one, that we got this. We know what we need to do now. So again, sorry, you guys, it's very quick, but just really wanted to give you a sense of how to do that. So thank you so much for sharing a lot, but I'm going to invite you to open back up your eyes, and if you want to take notes, feel free to do that. And if anybody wants to share more in the chat, and it sounds like you guys discovered a lot. So thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, and so what I'd love to hear is just any more takeaways, and like in particular, what are you going to commit to doing? What are you going to commit to doing next time that urge to procrastinate comes up? What's your, hopefully all 5 steps. That's what I'd love to hear. Thank you. Carrie says she's going to stop. Yeah, yes. Carrie says that's the hardest. It is, because it's a whole new habit. It's a whole new way of learning to be with us. So you're right. It is the hard one. And the beauty is, once we get over that one, the rest of it's a little bit easier. It's just about stopping and listening, being willing to listen. It's just a whole new paradigm. And then Phoebe, thank you. So I'm going to pause and listen. Yeah, awesome. And then Kathy says she's not clear on step 3. So step 3, yeah. So step 3, this is a skill. And you guys, I remember the moment in my life when someone said to me, Did you know that you have all these parts and one of them is your adult self and you can choose to step into your adult self? I have to tell you, when somebody said that to me, it was a life-changing moment. A light bulb went on. You know, so many of us are running around and our younger parts are running the show and we just don't know. Nobody's told us that. So Kathy, step 3 is just knowing that I can step into an experience of myself. And so just speaking, modeling it, I'm a 52-year-old woman. I have been on a growth path my entire life. I've healed a lot of parts. I have a lot of wisdom, and not just wisdom, but I have courage and I have skills and experience and passion. So it's just really like owning who you are right now as the product of all the work and exploring you've done up until now, owning that, embodying that, connecting back into your vision, your why. So I hope that helps. That's kind of the step 3, but it's really just the first thing is just even knowing that we can do that. Zamara, that's awesome. She says thank you for walking us through and your wonderful kind words. I'm literally visualizing my older self hugging my child self. Yeah, it feels amazing. That's awesome to hear. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, you guys, so we're wrapping up, and I'm so glad that you guys had a good sense of this. And actually, if you have questions, we probably have just a couple more minutes. I'm just scrolling back through. Maybe I'm just going to ask if you have questions just to type them now, because that'll save me from scrolling back up. Awesome. Kathy says, to her takeaway is to ascertain the age of the voice and deal with it appropriately. Yes, hopefully lovingly and compassionately. Yeah, so if you have any questions, please go ahead and type them, or your takeaways. And again, your takeaways help everybody. So just as a little motivation, helps everybody, helps you integrate, and helps everybody else go, oh yeah, that one too. Okay, so as you can see, procrastination is a very deep and very powerful topic. It's a deep topic, and it's a powerful doorway into power and purpose and so much more. And you know what I really want to leave you with is it deserves to be treated like all of our feelings, to be honored, and some gratitude, and not least of all, listened to. Okay, sorry, sounds like we have a question here. Sometimes the delay can rally my abilities, working at your best under pressure. I just want a less stressful approach to tap into that aspect. When is that healthy? Let's see. That is a really interesting question. So the thing I guess I would say is it's a choice. I mean, I think we probably all know that feeling of, oh my gosh, I can just at some point get so, for me, panicked that now I'm motivated to, and then it gets me really, really focused. So, you know, it's a choice. And I would say, if that's working for you, if that feels good, this is ultimately the answer. If that feels good to you, use it. Use it. But I think what people find a lot of times, if we're always using kind of last minute pressure and willpower, it gets draining. I mean, I get tired of that. It gets draining. And then there comes a point where I'm just too tired and I don't want to do that. So that's my point about that approach I have discovered isn't really sustainable. It's not sustainable. And it depends on what you're doing. But for me, also, when I connect into this sort of deeper place of my actual vision and my purpose, I just find that I have more wisdom than when I'm doing it last minute under pressure. That's another big difference for me. So ultimately, it's a choice. So Mikhail, is that how I pronounce your name? You just want so I'm saying it's a choice, and you want a less stressful approach to tap into that aspect. So I guess maybe then the part 2 of your question is, what I would suggest, okay, this is what I'm suggesting. I wonder if you can follow this process as you get connected back into your vision. And because this is not a stressful way to do it. This is a way that we step into it with sort of grace, I feel like, and ease in our bodies. But then for me, you know, once I've really reconnected with my purpose, and then I feel this power. So then I actually feel totally ready and all my skills are available, but I've gotten in this much less stressful way. So maybe that's another answer to your question. Let me know if I didn't answer. Okay, Carrie, what you said helped solidify something I was struggling with and gave me confirmation the direction I was going is right. Yay, awesome. Oh, awesome. You've helped more people than you know. Oh, awesome. Okay, and does it matter if you can figure out what age the scared voice is? Sarah said, yes, Sarah, it absolutely does not matter if you don't know what age. We don't, this is the beauty. We don't actually have to go back into all those childhood memories. We don't. The fact that you could hear that it's a childhood voice is what's helpful. That's what's helpful, because it just helps us realize I want to reassure that young part, and I'm not in my adult self right now. That's all. So that's absolutely fine. I would not worry about that at all. Awesome, you guys. So, okay, and so a couple people have said they want the PDF. So if you just want to, you can message me privately here with your email address, and I'd be happy to send you the PDF. You can also, the thing about it is you can message me on Meetup, but I can't send an attachment on Meetup. But I could also send you a link to download it on my website too. So maybe I'll do that. I'll put it on my website as well. And you can also, if you want to send me your email address, I'll send it to you directly. And Sarah says, I'm not sure it's a child voice. Doesn't feel verbal usually anyway. Well, I guess what I would say to that is that's okay too. But what we want to just sort of notice is if it's being more, that voice is being more run by fear or the fact that I can't do it. So we just want to notice those different voices, whatever age they might be, and differentiate that from the adult, wisest version of ourselves, our vision. I like to call it our visionary self, the one that signed up for this, that wanted to do this, right? And so I hope that helps clarify. That's really what we want. We want to differentiate the voices and find the visionary part of us that wanted to do this thing, whatever it is. Okay, great. So I see a couple people asking for the PDF. Happy to send that. And so lastly, what I want to say before I introduce our next speaker is, yeah, this is, as I said, this is a deeply personal process and a powerful process. So, and it is the thing that I'm really passionate about, as I said, helping people bust through fear, self-doubt, anxiety, indecisiveness, and procrastination. So what I want to offer here, anybody here, if you feel like you want to go a little bit deeper with it, I'm happy to offer up a complimentary procrastination transformation. See if you can say that 5 times, a procrastination transformation session. So it's a free 45-minute session. And what we'll do is we'll actually unravel your procrastination. Maybe you worked a little bit today and didn't get quite as much clarity as you'd like. It just is easier. That's the nature of this work. It's easier to do with somebody. So I would love to hold the space and guide anybody through that process and help you get super clear on what's underneath your procrastination and use that as a doorway to power and purpose. So if you want to take me up on that, also just leave me your email here and you can just send it privately or message me through Meetup, either way. And I would love to support you in that. Thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate it. Let's see, was that one more question? Sarah said, yes, fear versus visionary self. And Kathy says, okay, I don't know, Kathy, you meant to send that privately, so I won't read that. Kathy says, right about the age of the voice. Oh, only that you feel able to comfort the voice and help it stop the behavior. Yes, exactly. So awesome, you guys. This was really, really fun. Thank you so much for your engagement and your attention. And everybody take a deep breath. And actually, I just want to invite you to even stand up and stretch for a moment because we're going to switch gears. But stand up and stretch, drink some water, move around a little bit, especially with what we just did, by the way, because we just, potentially invoked, moved around some fear energy. So it's super helpful to move around a little bit. Feel your feet on the floor, tap your body a little bit. Take a drink of water.